Hi everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 248 of Album of the Day, which as you can see for this review, I am actually in a new position for this video. Rather than sitting on my bed, I'm actually sitting here at my desk right next to my record collection over there. This is a little bit of a different position for me. Just letting you know. But anyway, let's get started on the review. So today's band is a Japanese rock band that's been around since 2009, but just recently put out their first project that could be considered an LP. It's the Japanese group known as Otoboke Beaver, and as you can see, this is yet another album I'm reviewing that I do not have the physical copy of. But hopefully I'll be able to get this on vinyl. So today I'm reviewing Otoboke Beaver's debut album, which was released on April 26th of 2019. The album is called Itekoma Hits. And even though this album came out in April, it wasn't until July when I finally got to listen to it. I found out about them through a needle drop review, and I will say this is definitely one of my favorite discoveries I've made from Anthony Fantano in 2019, because this is definitely one of my favorite punk records of the year. Even though I will say, even though punk is sort of something that they definitely do, I think calling Otoboke Beaver a hardcore punk band doesn't necessarily display the full picture of who they are. I mean, they are so much more than that. In fact, they are probably one of the most creative and ambitious hardcore bands working today. And besides also being probably one of the fastest, most ferocious, and sort of most throttling punk records of the year. I mean, this is the kind of record that would make idols blush a little bit. Which is saying something, because I am a pretty big Idols fan. This band also has plenty of personality. They sometimes will make me laugh, even if their lyrics and their subject matter is actually quite serious, ranging from like love, sex. There's also a little bit of politics in the lyrics too, like gender politics, as well as, women sort of trying to work hard to, help their families and still feeling kind of like they're being put on the lowest common denominator by the world a little bit. And not to mention, this LP only clocks in at over 26 minutes. 26 minutes, and it's 14 tracks. But the fact that the band is able to squeeze in so many good ideas and so much energy and definitely great quality in that long, definitely it baffles me, because even I can't really complete that skill. Really like the opening track on here, Datsu. I don't know how to say it, but really a very strong opener for the album. I really like how the song sort of could be about the end of a relationship and sort of the anger that people feel when like their significant other like cheats on them or something like that. And also really like the very catchy anthemic chorus, great bass line and guitar riff on there. It kicks ass, I'll tell you. As does the following track, which is pretty short, but the vocalist is just going completely insane on this track. But I also do really like that how, even though it's only a minute and 13 seconds long, it still feels like a journey. Like, there's a point in the song where the instruments kind of slow down a little bit and create this short little groove after the kind of explosive me, he, oh, me, he, akamaenka chorus. It's killer, I will say that. The next track, Sivu Play, actually has a little bit of that twangy indie rock sort of feel to it. I mean, I will say that this band actually kind of reminds me a little bit of the Riot Girl movement of indie rock bands like Sleater-Kinney, Bikini Kill, Melt Banana. But this song also sounds like it could be played by some sort of modern indie band, like, say, Hop Along, or even Idols have come up with riffs that sound like this a little bit. That really like the guitar riff on this track, great bass line and drumming, fantastic choruses on this track. It definitely reminds me a little bit of it sounds kind of like a Japanese version of like a Sleater-Kinney song a little bit, and I mean it as a pretty big compliment. The next track, Bakuro Book, is kind of hypnotic noise rock that features actually a really cool melodic chorus in the middle. This is the kind of record where, like, you know, because it's in Japanese and I don't speak Japanese at all, I don't understand half of what's being said on this album, but given the song titles and the attitude and the dynamics that they bring to these songs, their message becomes still pretty clear, even if it isn't in English. But what I really think is the strong moment of this album is the heart of this album. I mean, so many killer tracks in the middle of this record, like the track, What Do You Mean You Have to Talk to Me at This Late Date, which is probably one of the most hilarious song titles on the album. I really like how sort of in your face the opening of this track is, but also this song also has a pretty unconventional song structure for its runtime. I mean, the first half is like pretty accessible, but then the second half of it, we get all these really cool solos, a great drumming solo, a bass break, which shows how sort of loose and kind of raw this album is. They're not afraid to allow a little bit of improvisation with instruments, because I don't remember like the last time bass breaks were such a big thing to an album since like Green Day's Dookie is an album that doesn't have a lot of guitar solos but has some pretty killer bass breaks in much of its tracks. And given the title of What Do You Mean You Have to Talk to Me at This Late Date, it's pretty, I'm pretty sure, you know, that this title sounds kind of sexual in a way. Then we get to a little bit of like politics, a little bit of gender politics on the track Introduce Me to Your Family, which is sort of a song about how when a woman sort of falls in love with another woman, you know, they sort of end up in that awkward moment where they have to introduce that significant other to their family, who may be, you know, expecting, you know, maybe a heterosexual relationship, but, you know, it ends up being a homosexual relationship. Which I definitely think that title and that sort of subject matter, it's definitely very serious, but it is some really kind of clever satire for how, you know, women, you know, how, you know, queer women have to deal with a lot of, you know, challenges and just to sort of, you know, be themselves and not let whatever other outside expectations sort of determine how they live their lives. The next track, Love Is Short, also is sort of about that sort of thing. And I love the anger that they like pack into this track. Even all the way down to those ooh 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 ooh, those catchy group vocals in there. And I also do really like how sort of ferocious the singer sounds on this track, being like, love is love is a shot down, love is a shot down. I mean, I am just totally digging that. And also I will say, Introduce Me to Your Family also does have some doesn't have probably the best bass line on the entire record, which shows that the band can get kind of funky at times with the way they play their instruments. And also the song Bad Luck. It may be kind of a bit of an idea just kind of thrown into the mix of, the band creating a kind of funky surf rock kind of jam, but at the same time, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb or anything. It actually fits really well with the rest of the tracks. And again, another song that has a pretty cool song structure given its 2-minute runtime. It sort of starts out as this kind of hypnotic, funky, bass-led jam, but then we get this really beautiful section in the middle where we get a surf rock riff and some really nice vocal harmonies too that eventually does bleed into this explosive outro. But even more explosive is the following track. Don't light up my fire, don't light up my fire. Killer energy on the track. Really like the drumming on here, the animalistic screaming, and its lyrics that once again sort of channel that feeling of, when someone cheats on you, you kind of, lash out at them, and you sort of can't help but just want to shout out, go, 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 go to here. I mean, this song just completely kicks ass, and it definitely is the kind of song that will leave you bouncing in a bunch of different directions. I mean, I am trying really hard not to lose my headphones as I am just tossing my head around while listening to this track. It is so good. The next track is called 6-Day Working Week is a Pain, which is also a very funny song title. Probably one of the most apt pieces of music, like not just in punk, but any music at all that I've heard in 2019. This track has it sort of is the musical equivalent to the working week that some women who are working to like help their families, despite being kind of prejudiced sometimes, have to deal with. So it starts out as pretty normal. There's this kind of catchy, sort of Dead kind of Black Flag inspired kind of groove at the beginning. But then the song turns into this really like cool psychedelic kind of section where the guitars are being have like wah-wah pedals and some other pedal that makes it sound like a fun machine keyboard a little bit. Then board, and then following that, things get a little funkier in the track. But then we do get this pretty sinister riff along with these shouted group vocals, and then some pretty fire harmonized screams after that. This song is really a perfect example of just how unpredictable the vocal performances on this album are. And it's not just coming from the lead singer, like everybody in the band is singing, shouting, screaming, really adding to the fun of this album. This is one of those albums this year where like all of their voices and the power that they sort of showcase on this album is just incredible and also pretty baffling in my opinion. If there's any kind of critique that I have about this album, I will say that the last 4 tracks that follow, they are pretty good. But I will say that their kind of aggressive, punky attitude on these tracks. It does get pretty one-dimensional in this point in the album, and I do wish there was a little more experimentation to be found on here, although it does have another one of my favorite tracks on here, which I don't really know how to say the name of this track, but I'll tell you this, it does have the words yome no meshi repeated like 30 times, but I don't mind it one bit because the song is just so killer. And also really like So I also really like the different vocal performances on this track. There's this kind of hypnotic, there's this sort of hypnotic vocal harmony section, and then all four members of the band sort of create these layers of gang vocals and hand claps at one point. It sounds kind of like sort of a stacked version of the band. It's basically four versions of them clapping and singing to make it sound as though there's 16 voices in the room, which I think is a really cool effect they do there. There's also a little bit on here about eating disorders. We have the track Binge Drinking, Binge Eating, Bulimia, which is kind of fits in with the vibe of this album and how, eating disorders are more common in women than they are in men, so it would make total sense if there would be a song in here about how, when women, sort of lose their significant other, they kind of delve into some depression and kind of eat to, like cope with difficult emotions. But I love how just sort of angry the song sounds, too. Probably my least favorite tracks on here would have to be, like the track I'm Tired of Your Repeating Story is just so aggressive to the point of it being kind of annoying in my opinion. Like the I mean, it's to the point of me just kind of like, okay girls, take it easy on me now. And also the closing track, Mean, kind of sounds a little bit like an unfinished idea that's just kind of thrown into the end of the album, and it's only 18 seconds, so therefore it could have been turned into like a fully fledged out song. So therefore, the album flow so therefore I think the flow of the tracks could be improved a little bit on their next album, but overall I am really digging this Otoboke Beaver record. I mean, Beaver definitely delivers plenty of incredible ideas, great songwriting, great killer performances, and definitely one that I do think deserves a little more attention, although they did sort of get a lot of attention in 2017 from like Pitchfork and Stereo Gum so I think this band definitely deserves some attention sort of beyond the Pitchfork sort of community, because they are really that good at creating some very inventive, ferocious, and kick-ass punk. So I'm definitely going with a strong 8 out of 10 for this new Otoboke Beaver record, Itekoma Hits. I'll see you for episode 249.